So today is March 30th. We're starting Historical Commission meeting at 10:07 on Zoom. And looks like all three of us are here. Janet,
Here.
are you present?
Yeah, present.
And Barry
I'm here.
and June here. Okay. The first thing on the agenda was a little bit of a financial update. I checked our balance for the mitigation money, and because the cellar stairway didn't cost quite as much, our balance is $12,294.74. And that balance would include the threshold if we ever get it. We made some progress on the notice to proceed for the threshold. It had just lapsed. That change order just didn't go anywhere. But June and Margaret went back and forth and figured out where it was, where the paperwork was. And my understanding is that June would contact Cronenberger and see if they were willing to proceed. And I sent her a little reminder this morning about that. So I still don't have a good answer, but it's in progress anyway. And then our donations account has that extra $100 in it that was donated. So it's, let's see, what is that figure? 700?
700 and some. Yeah.
Yeah, 700 and something. And our foundation, our SIL invoice was not paid for until after the first of the year. So that paperwork I just signed only went through the end of 2021. And our balance doesn't reflect the SIL project. Actually,
balance.
Oh, actually, that, I don't know who that is. That expenditure ledger doesn't include mitigation money. It's for CPA and it's for CPA money and our budget of $600. Should it have included our mitigation money?
No, because that would be in the selectmen's accounts.
Okay, so that would have been a separate thing, and I didn't get anything about that. Okay, so that's my little report on that.
June, can you tell me that? Can you tell me that original number, the 12,000 again?
Yes. In the mitigation fund, even if we include the $750 for the threshold, that balance would be $12,294.74.
Good, thank you.
I suppose technically if we add on the 750, then we're a little over 13,000. So that's a little better than what we thought because the cellar stairway didn't cost quite as much.
All right, I want to just say that June's talking about monthly things that we get from the accountant that states your account, the accounts that are under our control, and that those come, and the thing is they also come often quite a while after the date that they've covered. So it's not unusual to get them 2 or 3 months late. And in our case, we don't have a lot of transactions, but for anybody that has transactions going on all the time, they're almost no use. because they're so old by the time you get them sometimes. Okay, yeah, you aren't used to seeing those, and that's why normally I don't talk about those in a meeting unless there's something in them that indicates there's been an error or a problem.
Yeah. Well, I hope it was accurate. I signed off on it.
Oh, I think it was. I think it's all right.
Yeah, okay. The next thing on the agenda is the demolition permit for 92 Gates Pond Road. I did go by there, and the house itself is just a charred hulk. And then there's a long row of sheds off to the right as you're facing the premises.
Are they
and those-
attached to the house?
No, they're not attached. They're freestanding, and there's like a little, no, there's quite a bit of space between the two, but
Is-
they're definitely on the same parcel.
Are they included in the demolition permit?
I didn't see it.
Then I move that the house at 92 Gates Pond Road, for which a demolition permit has been applied, that we declare it as not historically significant.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, we'll have a little roll call vote here. Barry
I
and Janet
Aye.
and June, aye. Motion approved unanimously.
the house, the assessors have the number 1939 for a building date, the house. It was a story and a half house. It was remodeled within the last 50 years to a 2-story house, and is very different in appearance than it was as a 1.5-story house. I mean, no relationship at all in appearance. And from my point of view, the house that's there is really the house that of the renovation rather than the original. And therefore, in some ways, you could even say it isn't the 50 years old to come under the bylaw. But my thought is we just declare it not significant. That takes care of the problem. And I'll get the letters out on that with the building inspector.
Okay, thank you, Barry. Follow up. That's good. I did have Marty take some pictures in case you didn't get a chance to go out there.
Yeah, I have not been there.
Just to take a drive by, so you have some kind of image in your mind as to what we acted upon. But you can't go on the premises, or at least there's a sign asking you not to, and there's a lot of it that's taped off. But you can see the site from the road. Okay.
Get a print of one of the photos to put in the file.
Yes.
Just
Yes,
to print
I
out,
can do that.
just any kind of a printout that we can put in the file so that it records what a mess it is.
Okay. Have you in the past kept copies of the demolition permits?
Anything that I have in paperwork, I keep.
Yeah.
The thing that, I mean, we don't get them anymore.
I know.
We get an electronic thing, and I don't know. I have to figure out how we're going to handle that better, because normally, when Larry was in business, we would get a copy, absolute copy of the building permit, and so that went in our file along with any of the work that we did on it. But we haven't been getting those now, and I don't think they're likely to do that. But we have to figure out what we can do, and maybe we can print something out off the the electronic things that come to us that would suffice to indicate that we had it, but
Okay, we'll work on that then. Well, the next item on the agenda is a complicated one, like, at least in my mind. It's a bit of a discussion on the two surveys that impact the foundation at the Bullard House. And I did, when I went through both reports again yesterday and this morning, I came up with some questions. They're not, you know, I can't think of the word. No, it doesn't matter. But I did come up with 5 or 6 questions. And the first one, unless someone wants to go ahead of me.
go ahead.
The only thing
first-
I think, June,
Go ahead, Janet.
the
Yep.
only thing I just wanted to remind you, sometime we should come back to approving the minutes of the last meeting because I did have some, a couple of questions about those. I don't want to interrupt what you're doing now, but I don't think we've done that yet.
Okay, I think that because they were interim meetings, I think we have to deal with them on April 13th. Is that right, Barry?
Well, we don't have to, but we often do that.
Okay,
What would you like to do? I can,
that's fine. I don't mind doing that. I just, someday we have to come back to it because I found a couple of little glitches. I wanted to just see if they.
okay. Do you think it's in our best interest to clear those up now, or?
Yeah, I think so, probably.
Okay,
Okay.
okay. So for March 9th, what did we think about those?
March 9th, I think was okay. Yeah, I think that one was, I didn't write.
That
make
one
any
was
notes
okay.
on that one. Yeah, yeah. There was.
You want to just vote to approve that and then go to the next one? Are you sure there wasn't anything?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there wasn't. I think these comments that I had were from
For the 17th?
Yeah.
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 Okay,
Yeah, it's written on the 17th one, so I think it is, yeah.
okay.
Um,
So can we have a motion to approve the minutes of the March 9th meeting?
I move we approve the minutes of the March 9th meeting.
March 9. Second,
I suppose so. I hadn't really thought about all this stuff. So second,
okay. And all those in favor, Janet
Aye.
and Barry
aye.
and June, aye. Do you want to have a chance to look at the March 17th minutes, Barry?
Yeah, I would, but hear her things now so you can decide to make changes if you want to.
Okay, all right. Go ahead, Janet.
I was thinking that at one point, and now I didn't highlight where it is in the minutes, so we'll have to have a little search. You talked about 30K for architect services, 60K for understructure repairs, and 10K for an architect for the understructure. I read the CPA warrant. I happen to have access to that.
Okay.
What's supposed to go on it. And it mentions architectural services to support MHC grant, archaeological survey, and structural repairs to Bullard House floor. So I just wanted to make sure that the 10K wasn't meant to say archaeological services for the understructure.
Well, I'll go back and read the CPA article, but when I read it early this morning, I don't remember any mention of archaeological services. So I hope the warrant article is in good shape. I guess, is it possible for you to copy and paste that to us in an
Yeah.
email? So we
Yeah.
know what it says.
I can read it to you from.
Okay, that's
this is from
fine.
the Town meeting. It's not long.
Okay,
To see if the town will vote to appropriate and I do think this may still be able to be played with a little bit. I'm not sure on that, but I think we can still. To see if the town will vote to appropriate the total sum of $100,000 from the Community Preservation Fund, with $56,500 from the fund balance reserved for historic resources, and the sum of $43,500 from the CPA undesignated fund balance. We haven't gotten to my part yet. For the purpose of engaging architectural services to support Round 29 Massachusetts Historical Commission grant, and for conducting an archaeological survey required by the MHC grant, and for structural repair to the Bullard House floors at the historic Bullard House, located at blah, 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 you know, that's the last of what, and take any action relative thereto.
yeah, that's it, that, it's an error.
Which one is the error?
When you read the 60,000, the detail on the $60,000 in the final CPA application, it says, therefore, this final application reflects the deletion of the $20,000 task to replace 4 doors and the deletion of the $12,000 task for an archaeological survey from the pre-application.
And that is from what document?
That is from the CPA final application that Elaine submitted.
Okay. I better speak with the CPA chairman.
Yeah. If you need me to forward, let me know, Janet, and I can forward you the application that she filed.
Okay. Good. That was, I
Oh.
think, let me,
Barry?
I guess we're gonna have to look at we may have to go to the next meeting of the CPA committee and discuss whatever needs to be discussed about it. And also verify with the select board what the current state of the article is in the warrant. And we should do that sooner rather than later, because they'll in April, they'll be posting the warrant. They'll be finalizing the warrant sometime, so later in April.
maybe before you go to anybody, I ought to take it to Tim and say, is this the one you intended to hand me, or did I pick up the wrong one? That would be the simplest solution. And then, and he might be able to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. We just have to talk to the parties involved and figure it out.
Yeah.
June, the copy you were gonna send to Janet so she can compare with what Tim may have on file.
You need that too? Or do you want me to read it?
No, I want you to send a copy of it
To you
Janet,
and
so
Janet? Or just Janet? Okay.
well,
Well,
in order that we can make sure that things go together.
All right.
Yep.
We'll call that step 1. And if he and I can figure out where the problem is, then we can solve that. But if not, then
You'll let me know.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good. Is there anything else in those March 17 minutes that seems?
I'll review them before our next meeting.
Okay.
And so we'll wait to vote on these minutes then? Is that the idea?
Yeah, we'll leave that up. We'll leave
Yeah,
that
I think
later.
Yeah. Anything else, Janet, besides the CPA?
No, I don't see it. I don't see that I had anything else that I picked up on.
Okay,
I had an interesting epiphany, though, as a new member that I'll share with you. And that is that I had been thinking of the 100,000 matching as having to come out of either the 2021 money, the
Appropriation,
$100,000.
yeah.
And or the 2022 $100,000, never occurring to me that the projects from the 2021 can be done, a couple of them can be done, and then some of the matching money can come from that, and some of the matching money can come from what comes up with the 2022.
22.
And we just have to make sure we always have $100,000 by the time we apply.
well, the CPA article that the town votes on in May would have to reflect that use of it.
Well, it isn't, is it a use if it's matching? Doesn't it just have to be in our hands? I mean, we're not spending it, we're hanging on to it, but can we hang on to money from both years? And just make sure we don't spend all of 2021, because we're going to have to pull the architect's money out of the 2022 100,000. So that won't be money in hand that we can prove that we can match with. Does that make sense? So we have to save some of the work from the first ARPA funds.
They're not they're CPA.
It's
I
not
don't mean
ARPA,
ARPA.
it's
I'm sorry,
CPA.
CPA.
Yeah. Well, I think I understand what you mean, and it's just the semantics of the.
I don't know. There's so many different moving parts in that. I don't know if that needs to be mentioned in the, that it's, if it needs to be mentioned in the town meeting warrant articles, or in the vote that the town takes, that this is to be used for matching funds. And we
Well,
didn't do that last year because we hadn't planned it yet.
yeah,
But
it does talk about the grant.
in
It
what?
says, well, the way the little budget is structured, the 30K is to support. It's for architectural services to support round 29 MHC grant.
You're in the 2022 money. I'm talking about the 2021 money.
Oh, no, that doesn't say anything about it.
And that doesn't say anything about it. And we've got to, it isn't something we can decide now. It's something we've got to check into the moving parts on, but we need to know what has to be said in various places so that we indeed can use it for that purpose as matching funds.
And then
once
we have the grant, Barry, once we actually, I mean, if we got it, but once we have the grant, then I would say we get to go ahead and spend what we held back as matching funds. We can go ahead and spend it on the projects that we had planned to spend it on. And do you know what I'm saying? Because match just means we've got this money in hand, but it doesn't mean we're never going to spend it on our projects. You don't just keep it.
My understanding of the grant is that you get a grant for $100,000.
Yeah.
And you have to have matching funds of $100,000, and that the project that you're doing under the grant costs $200,000.
That's right.
You have a $200,000 project, and $100,000 of it's going to come from the state, and $100,000 of it is going to come from matching funds here. But you've got to have the total project defined to include all these different things. And I don't know that we can't include things like the foundation
Sure.
as part of the project.
Yeah.
But we've got to figure that all out so we know how that actually is going to work.
And what that means is that if we can't spend any of that money while they're still deciding, you know, before, what is it? The application is due in March of 2023. And
Yeah.
then I think they grant the money sort of at the beginning of July. They announce.
That's
who's
about
gonna-
right.
Yeah. And so that would mean that we couldn't start on any new projects, including the foundation, until July, until we find out if we've got the grant or not. If what you're saying is true, which, you know, that's, if we really have to spend the whole chunk, the whole 200,000, I was hoping that when it said matching, that it means we only have to hold aside without spending 100,000, so that we can match their 100,000.
Yeah, but
And
it's
that
got to
means
be a $200,000 project.
it does have to be a $200,000 project.
I don't think we'd have any trouble coming up with that amount.
I think, oh no, that it wouldn't be a problem, but we've got to figure out a lot of moving parts to,
So-
and what Carl was doing before was each time that we had another change, he was reconfiguring the total plan to make it come out right, you know, and that's going to have to continue to be done as different decisions are made. You have to reconfigure the plan so that it
Mhm.
all works. And
Well, I wonder
it's
if
not
we-
simple.
Now, one thing is that we are later on the agenda going to talk about Dan Barton and perhaps getting together with him and raising some of our questions about moving parts and getting some thoughts from him. But I wonder if he can answer that, or if it would pay for one of us to call Mass Historic Commission and whoever you call, and find out about, are we supposed to be able to show 100,000 by the time we apply? Or are we supposed to be able to show enough to cover a $200,000 project? I mean, somebody over there ought to be able to answer that question for us.
It should
that
be
what
it should be in the information about the grant.
Yeah. Okay.
And it should have been in the workshop that you went to on it, June. And I mean, I remember hearing some of this stuff years ago,
Yeah.
but it's so old in my mind that I can't.
It was January 2020 that Elaine and I went to a workshop.
Do you have material from that workshop?
I do, actually. I found it the other day. I didn't reread it or anything, but
No.
I did find it.
I
Yeah,
think we need to review that material. That may
Okay.
give us the answers to this, or
okay.
at least get us to a point where we can ask a question that
Yeah.
is better developed.
Yeah.
Do
And I
you
mean,
have that, Janet, already?
Do I
I mean,
what?
do you have an updated version of that already, the application and the instructions that go with it?
I don't have the 66-page instructions, but I mean,
Okay,
I
I think I have those.
Yeah,
So
I
I could,
have the application.
okay, I can give you,
The other thing, no, what was I gonna say? The other thing. Anyway, go ahead.
but your point, I think your point earlier was, I think what you were getting at was, does it matter which pocket we take the leverage money out of? And I don't think it does.
No, because as far as they're concerned, they're just gonna want to know that in our treasury, or whatever we call it, that we have this money. I don't think they're gonna care how we got it, as long as they know that we've got
Mhm.
100,000.
Because the point was made by Elaine, that you definitely could use CPA money to leverage.
Mhm.
So, you know, but we'll look at the instructions and figure that out.
And you know, I know what I was just gonna say before, in a way, how that turns out, whether we need to reserve 200,000 or 100,000, What that really affects is the timing of getting started on projects. And, you know, we're eager to get started so people know that this is a going thing and that they really can help us with it or invest in it. And so it'd be nice to go sooner rather than later, because
Yes. Yeah. Whoop, we lost Janet.
Yes, we've lost her, it's right. We have lost her and she's not on the screen right now as an attendee, so we'll have to wait.
Maybe
till she
there's
gets
someone
back
at
on.
home who can help her get back.
Well, she may get back on herself, but maybe the computer shut off or something on it. No, this, we're gonna have to do some sitting down and talking about this and with clear understanding of the parameters of the grant and what has to be done. But almost anything that's matching funds, the project has to be the money from the granting agency plus the matching funds is the project.
Right,
You can't have the project money, you can't use for matching funds money you're going to use for something else. It's got to be for the project, and it's got,
right.
and the total budget should be the two added together.
Yep.
At any rate.
Well,
Is there something else we can do while we're waiting?
do
Or talk
you
about-
do you want my questions for the two surveys, or should we wait for Janet?
Well, we can pull one out and we'll talk about it.
Okay, my first question is kind of a dumb question, so here it is. If you look at both reports,
Yeah.
Is it possible at all that the sill work was undertaken prematurely, or does that have no effect on all these other problems that have been cited?
The sill work on the front of the house?
Yep,
No, I don't think so. I think that's fine.
okay. So
I think
that's,
that's fine because the sill work on the front of the house would have been, I mean, that was something you need to do anyway. I don't know, but I imagine that was mentioned in his original report because it was, you know, that was an area that needed attention. Well, yes, because the sill work was in the original report as something to be done.
that's right.
And
it really
that's where we
didn't
got that.
Yeah, and it didn't have anything to do with the north end of the house or all that sill work is independent of the issues that have been brought up in the structure in the supplemental report.
Oh, I think so. Yes, yes. 'Cause
Except for, yeah, except for
The,
integrating, you know, if indeed the house were jacked up, you'd have to integrate things a little differently because you'd take the opportunity for the house to be up to do this, all these other things. So that would be different, but anyway, question number 2. It's just a sort of a hypothetical thing. If you consider both reports and what is finally decided to do from those recommendations, it seems like, is it possible, I mean, that the overall cost would be not the sum of the two estimates, but a little bit less? I mean, maybe integrating the two wouldn't be 163 plus the original 95. Maybe it would be a little bit, it would be less because things would be.
well, the original report had a whole mess more than the 95 in it.
Well, I'm just considering the foundation and the understructure. That's all we're trying to figure out. Yes, you're right. the, the building survey has all these other things, but in my mind, I think our discussion was going to be focused on this, the supplemental report and the foundation. Those two things to me need to be integrated. All the other, and maybe the insulation too, you know, that might have to be done during that whole operation if this all happens. I wasn't considering any of the windows or the doors or the collars that were recommended. I wasn't dealing with those at all.
Well, that's a, you gotta be careful with you, how some of those are divided out, but yeah, I mean, I guess I get a point to that. I don't know.
Well, it was just a thought, and it's not a very important consideration because because we aren't there yet. And I think just basically how the foundation is dealt with needs to be worked on with the other recommendations in the supplemental report, if that all is decided. I mean, that the work on the foundation and the under the floors, both of all those things would have to be integrated into one larger project if we agree that all of that or most of that needs to happen.
Yes,
Okay.
I
So it's
think
just,
that I still am having some trouble with some of Tim's intentions with this whole thing. And the fact that he basically wants to scrap all the work that's been done to do it over the way he wished it were done. There's going to be a lot of complications from that. His complaint about the floating posts,
yeah,
what he calls floating posts, what was done there, Al Macquarie did, it was to support upstairs, you know, higher weights, higher in the building, and that there wasn't good support under those. So he was providing good support under those and doing it directly from the ground below rather than on the structure. And Tim doesn't like that, but if my memory serves me correctly, and we'll have to go back and consult what photos we've got, in the entrance room, the beam that we put in to support the upstairs room
yeah,
runs between those two supports that are there going down to the ground. And if you take those supports out, that whole business falls in because it doesn't have anything. I mean, the beam is only this long and the span is now going to be somewhat greater. The beam is less than the whole width of the room. It's only the width between the two posts. And when you make it this much longer, that means you're going to have to take that beam out and make another one and do that all over again up above too, which means you've torn out the whole inside of that room that we've spent money doing. I'm just not in favor of that. It's just,
yeah.
Okay.
Well,
he's been so determined to say that everything we've done is wrong that he wants to basically erase it. And the result of that is just going to be a whole mess more money spent. And I have a lot of trouble with that. And the other thing I want to say
That might be Janet. Hold
Might
on.
be Janet, yeah.
Yep. Hi, Janet. Okay, so he needs to let you in now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
She is there. I'm sorry, she is there.
Yeah, okay.
You can also do that too. I might add that you probably, if you put up the participants, could also do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I had
I'm
failed to
sorry.
keep watching that spot to see her back on.
Yeah.
Here we go.
So I
Um,
would just, if I
we're
could have
fine.
just clicked on participants and then admitted her, or where would I have clicked on?
You click on participants, it gives you a list on the right side of your screen.
Okay, and then I would,
Then you have panelists and attendees. You can click on attendees and that'll give you the people that are
and then
there.
I can, okay,
Yeah.
all right. I'll pay attention next time
Well,
too.
No big thing.
fixed it, I think.
I just forgot to watch attendees for when you came back. That's all.
Okay,
Barry, you were talking about the beam in the room, just in case
Yeah.
you forgot where you left off.
Yeah. Well, what I was saying is, we put in that structural beam and it was very good and all that, but it doesn't go the whole width of the room. It only goes the width of where the supports are. And therefore, if we take the supports, if we change the support mechanism, that means the structure for overhead has got to be revised too. And there's a lot of things that he says in his thing that I just don't know what's going to happen overhead when it happens. If you straighten out the floor in the gallery, for instance, is that going to mess up the whole roof structure up above? And that's one reason why I never was really interested in messing with that, because I figured that if you go getting that straightened up, you're going to have to redo the roof structure to go together, because that's going to change that configuration. And he does say in his thing that when you jack the house, you're probably going to have to mess with the roof again.
yes,
And,
I remember that.
And I just see big dollar signs in all of this stuff. That makes me very concerned. When I was at the gravestone workshop a couple of years ago down at Gloucester, 2 or 3 years ago, one of the things that one of the men said when we epoxy glued a gravestone all together that was in about 6 pieces, and he said, well, that's good for the next 50 years. And the point is that nothing is forever. And every so often in life, you just have to go back and, do some more and maybe undo things that were done some time ago, but they've served for a period of time. And there's a piece of me that says, some of this repair work that we did, hey, that's it. That's for the next 30 years or 50 years. And maybe at that point, somebody will have to figure out what to do and do it over. And maybe they'll decide to jack the whole house up and do it a whole different way after I'm dead. But at some point, you just wonder how much sense does it make to undo things that are working for now in order to make something that you think will be better for the long term. So I mean, that's something you got to weigh all the time in terms of how much money you want to spend. The big thing that is so different right now is that we actually have a line into some significant money, which we never used to have.
Yeah.
And ongoing, the 50,000 presumably will be ongoing every
Well,
year. Or 50
but
years.
that's for historic preservation, not for the bullet house specifically.
Right. But that would certainly fall under that. So yeah, so you're saying we might not take all the 50,000. It might go to some other projects.
That's
too.
right. That's
No,
right.
I agree with that.
Other people can apply too.
Now, if we hire an architect that we trust, would that be the place to really get deeply into this kind of a discussion?
Probably, yes.
Yes, I think so. And it would be a source of great reassurance to me because
I think maybe our role right now is to write up the questions.
Well, I agree.
we know exactly what it is that we want to know. And then, you know, move forward as fast as we can to get an architect.
That's just
I-
why I
I-
wanted this kind of a discussion, is because if we don't spend some significant time amongst ourselves deciding what our questions are,
Right.
we're going to waste time with somebody whom we
Right.
actually have them to talk to.
So one of the
well,
questions that I'm hearing, oh, I'm sorry, June.
I just wanted to say that my first question turned out not to be a problem. And that was to worry if the sill work was undertaken prematurely because we had these other recommendations from the supplemental report, and we've cleared that up. It doesn't have any, it was independent of the north side of the building and had to be done, and is nothing that we need to worry about.
It is work that one would want to have done before one undertook both the foundation and any jacking up,
And okay,
because it means that it holds that part of the structure together better.
the second question I asked was, if you put all the tasks that we finally decide are necessary, I was hoping that perhaps overall it might reduce the cost a little bit from 163 plus 95. And then Barry brought up the fact that there are many other parts of the original survey, but I was just really focusing on the foundation and the supplemental survey, because they dealt with the actual structural, at least the bottom end of it anyway. And then question 3, and we don't know, that was just a sort of an idle question on my part. My third question was, you know, to come to some agreement that, at least among the 3 of us, that that the recommendations in both reports, as they relate to the foundation and the understructure, that we need to integrate those 2 reports, and then based on the help we get from the architect and whatever we finally decide, are we in agreement that we need to integrate all that information? And I think we are, but Barry's certainly understanding of the work that's been done before and what might be affected once we uproot the building. Those are things we need to communicate to an architect, and then 4,
Oh,
yeah,
excuse me.
number 4. Oh, I didn't ask number 4. So go ahead, Janet.
No, I was just going to say, before we get too far away from it, I think even the questions like Barry's about specific places, like the ceiling, and, you know, write down small questions and the big questions too.
Yeah.
So I'm going to write that one down, Barry, if that's all right with you. And,
Yeah, that's an important one.
And and so things that have been done before would be one. Which things that have been done before are going to last, and also the ceiling. In the what would that question be, Barry, if you phrased it as a question?
Support for the upstairs room in the entrance room.
As you go, Janet, as you go from the entrance room to that front room.
Yeah.
I probably never showed it to you, but there's a beam that was put there to give better support to the upstairs.
No. It's in the middle of the entrance room, where the wall used to be between the kitchen and the small room in the corner of the house.
Oh,
it's out in
okay.
the middle of the room.
I'm misunderstanding then.
It's out in the middle of the room. we may need to do a site visit and talk about some of these things.
Yeah, yeah, that would be helpful.
That would be helpful.
Yeah.
The other
But it-
thing that I do see is the other question about the level of restoration that we want to do on the house, and the whole concept that we had before, which was the back of the house has been so messed up that we'll just fix it as we can and use it that way, rather than trying to restore it to something that we really don't know what it was. And there isn't very much left to go by to tell what it was. I mean, to me, that's still a defensible position. And then we go back to the business of the standards, the National Register standards of you know, preservation, restoration, renovation, reconstruction. And again, I need to, I don't know where that material is now, but I'd like
Oh,
to review it
yeah.
at some point.
Janet, if you could, if we could give that book to Barry,
Yeah.
he wants to have a look. You know, that the
I always feel
Department
like
of
I
the
want to hand
Interior.
it to him right here. Yes, I know what you mean,
Yeah,
the,
yeah,
yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
pictures. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, that's
Okay.
interesting.
Because those are, you know, depending on what philosophy one takes, and my question is, can you take one philosophy for part of the building and another philosophy for another part?
Yeah.
If we can do that, then my statement is I'm not sure that the totality of Tim's survey necessarily has to be applied. At the same time, that doesn't mean that none of it is. You know, but some of the things he's had, like replacing all the windows to be of a certain type and things like that, I don't see that as sensible. Secondly, jobs like the windows and the doors and stuff, those don't necessarily have to be done as part of a huge project. They can be done piecemeal along the way, because that's what they are. No, they're small pieces. And there's no reason, for instance, you can't keep the windows that are there, and at various points as you work on a room or as you do things, you deal with those things in that place rather than as a particular job, especially since we did the weatherization, and it means the place is pretty well sealed up all the way around.
Yeah. Well, I was,
oh,
as I said before, I was pretty much not worried about windows and doors and finish.
Yeah.
I was really focusing on foundation and then these understructure issues.
you know, if I could just pop in with something, but Barry, you're talking about the back rooms in the house. Yeah, that begs a whole list of questions about what do we want to do in the house? Do we want to be able to serve refreshments? If so, we need to have a space to prepare some of them, you know, not make them, but put them out on plates and that sort of thing. So, you know, I think I'd add that as a question on the list, is for each of these things, you know, what do we want to actually do in there?
Well,
how does the understructure affect, how does some of the understructure issues affect at least a generation's use of those rooms that we consider functional? That's what we have to communicate to the architect, because I think we're all agreed that those rooms are functional rooms. I mean, the entrance room and the gallery have the appearance of, you know, we want them to have the appearance of being not modern, but at least within the period that people actually lived there. At least that's how I've sort of envisioned it anyway.
Again, at some point, it would be really good to just go in there and walk through and look at the preservation plan that we had, and which includes notes about use of building. And secondly, we had a plan for the kitchen, which essentially was a full modern kitchen. When Elaine was on, she was pretty determined that that wasn't the way it ought to be, and we talked about how to change that. And I essentially had a revised plan for the kitchen, though it was never totally committed to paper. And those are things to talk about. Janet, in that plan, we were still keeping a whole kitchen counter along under the long window, which would include a sink and maybe a dishwasher and a long countertop that would be there for us to do preparation such as to speak of. And the other side of the room, instead of having counters and a kitchen range, we'd still have a refrigerator there, but we'd have a cupboard and maybe a pizza counter that we can also use to support all of that and to put dishes away in and so on.
Another question that begs is, what would we, in terms of food safety and licensing and all, what would we actually be able to be allowed to do in there with food? Because that might keep it a simpler thing. My hunch is that, you know, it would be very limited.
Well, it's certainly limited now. I mean,
I know
the town hall is limited.
Yeah.
But
so that might also inform how fancy we make the kitchen, if it's, you know, only certain.
But yes, yes, and that's part of what was involved when Elaine was on and we were talking about revising it. Essentially, we're really going back to the idea of it being a serving area,
Right.
a serving prep area as opposed to a food prep area. In other words, you're not cooking there, but you are, you know, a place to set things up and a refrigerator to keep things cold and so on. But that it wouldn't be a food prep area. And hence the kitchen range had vanished in that plan. But those are things that we need to talk about because that's getting our use concepts straight. If we have a plan for use that we put together based on that kind of a consideration, then we have something to give to an architect in terms of planning ahead further.
And that really speaks for all the rooms, doesn't it? That what you just said, what
Oh,
I just
yeah.
thought, yeah.
Yes.
My fourth question was, and this is a really hard question. Were there any, I guess Barry probably can speak to this one. Were there any observations in either report, and this is just confined to the foundation and the second report for the under structure? Were there any observations that Tim made that you feel weren't supported, you know, weren't accurate? I don't know what word is appropriate here. I said in my question, were there any specific things that weren't supported by Tim's observations?
Well, one thing that I was, and a little bit of consultation and talking, and unfortunately, basically, I almost wasn't allowed to talk to Tim, so, and probably didn't want to talk to me anyway, but photo number 16, which is one of Marty's photos, an in-process photo taken in the entrance room.
Yep.
Shows it after the outside wall was covered and sheathed with the plywood, but it was an unfinished photo. And he comments that window, sill and wall replacement, but lacking insulation, moisture control, and structural continuity with the rest of the building. We can question the structural continuity issue from his point of view, but and I might say that the post that's in the middle of that is one of the ones under the beam structure that we were talking about. And you'll see that that has a foundation right down into the earth. And at the top of that, coming across, going off to the left, is the beam supporting the upstairs that I spoke of.
Okay,
And, but the other end of that beam is out in the middle of the room because there's a post in the middle of the room and then wall on the other side that is, which was the issue with that. But the comment here is that it has lacking insulation, moisture control. Well, after this picture was taken, insulation was put in, which included the vapor layer that insulation has attached to it. And then the wall was finished. And, we've got a whole inside completed wall with plaster, skim coat plaster and so forth. So the answer is this was an in-process photo and not necessarily one that indicates what's actually there now. And some of the comments that he's made, therefore, are also questionable. One of his things that he wanted to do, was to take out all of the, as he would call it, pink insulation or fiberglass, whatever, and change it to the kind that he wants to put in now, which is, is that really necessary when it's already been done? I know it's not done in the way that he would prefer, but it's done. And doesn't it make sense to let it go for 50 years? As opposed to taking it out to change the insulation, and therefore you've got to either just demolish the wall inside of the or open up the wall outside in order to make, it's just, you've got a finished wall that's got all the stuff in it it's supposed to have, but it just happens that it isn't the kind of insulation he would prefer. I am in agreement that if I'm putting in any insulation, I want to put in the kind that he prefers, because I have some understanding of why. But does that mean we have to tear out all the walls that have other insulation in them that might be perfectly good for a good long time? I don't know.
and that's on the north, I want to make sure I understand where this is. This is definitely the north end of the building.
This is the north end of the building on
Yeah.
the side facing toward the curatorial building.
Okay,
And you can see in this picture, you can see the framed in space for the window
yep,
that's in the middle of that wall. And of
yep,
course, he'd not yet cut out and put the window in. So, this was an in-process photo to show us what was there, what had been done up to that point, but it's not indicative of what is actually there now.
okay. So, let's see.
There's a few places in this that have issues of that sort that come up, and
Barry, would it be helpful for you to make a list of some of those things so it's actually in writing? Because I
Yeah.
know I won't remember it, and I know you're not sharing everything either. So that might just be a more structured way of, so that when we do actually meet with an architect, we won't forget things that were concerns.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
I was
think
just looking
Or
for,
we meet with Tim. I don't know which person, because, excuse me, June, I cut you off.
that's okay. I was just looking to see if photo number 16 had been used in the narrative, but I don't think so.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Is there any value in talking with Tim? Would there be any value in saying, Tim, explain to us about these installations? Why, how much longer will the good one really last than the one that's already there? Just to have a little more information, perhaps?
Well, it's the basic advantage is it's less likely to collect and hold moisture.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's the chief thing that's involved with that. And my understanding is that that's the case, and therefore, if we're putting in insulation from now on, I would definitely do that. But at the time that we did this, we didn't know about that,
Right.
that material, and in fact, it was more than 10 years ago, so whether that, I don't know what was available at the time. But Al was using, the stuff that most people use in that time, most contractors would use, and it's a common material. I'm in agreement that I wouldn't put it in now because we know a better material, but does that mean we have to rip the wall apart to change the insulation for something that might last without any great amount of problem for quite a while? I don't know.
It's a tough one because on the other hand, it's very tempting to say, let's just do it the right way while we're at it. And then it doesn't force somebody a couple generations from now to have to do something with something that, or even one generation.
My answer is,
That's moisture. you
my
know.
answer is a couple of generations from now, somebody will be needing to do something anyway.
Hmm. But the question, having the questions and then figuring out which person it's best to talk to about it, because without enough
Yes.
information, it's hard to say how bad is the bad insulation really. It's almost feel like a little bit more. And I think we owe it to the town to have those conversations because
Yeah.
we're spending other people's money here. And we don't want to go into it just with opinions. We want to go into it with knowledge that, okay, well, that kind they put in is going to do thus and so in approximately X number of years, that I feel like we kind of owe them that type of, researching mentality. But I don't know which person one talks to for that. It looks like we got a little bit of money if we even needed to pay someone to
Yeah.
talk with us, although I think there are certain people that you wouldn't have to pay. So,
I had two more questions, and we can't explore them completely because there are so many unanswered parts to this. But the next question would be, what is the impact on the use of the second floor if we don't treat the building holistically? If we don't treat, if we don't tie together the north side, the north end of our building, our functional end, with our more historic end, how does that impact, what happens to, what effect does it have on the second floor?
do you mean structurally?
Yeah,
Or do you
yeah.
mean
I mean, would we end up doing things that would just, not be just dumb because you're not supporting it properly?
Well, wouldn't an architect be able to know
Yes.
that without
Yeah.
having to actually see it happening all at the same time? And wouldn't they know?
Well, I think so, or one of his, the civil engineer
Yeah,
part of it.
I think that's
Yeah.
a question really probably for them, because I'm in way over my head in terms of knowing whether
Yeah.
this
I have
post has to go in now or can this post go in later, is sort of what you're getting at, I think. When does,
Well, if we don't tie the whole building together, the underpinnings together, in that holistic way that has been recommended, is there really some significant fallout to the second story? And because now we need we're juggling that with worrying about additional issues that come up because we're doing this
and I think that's why
thorough
it's
work.
critical to have a good architect, is what I would say, who would know those things and be able to make sure that, finishing off the upstairs as a place for people to go and be is another story once the structure is sound. Then, I mean, if you look at 19 Carter, we used that basement for a couple of years, I think. And it was very active and great things happened in there. So that's the finishing off part of it, because obviously the structure was sound in 19 Carter by the time they started working on the windows and some of the smaller things up there. And then eventually we moved into the whole place. But I think what you're talking about is you don't want something to fall down because.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think that is something way out of our league. We don't know well
yeah.
enough.
Well, I'm just
But I
posing
think
the
you're right.
question. Yeah, just
Making
posing
sure
the
that they
question.
look at the whole building, the architect does, yeah.
I want to go back to the structure of the house as it grew. And I don't know how well that was ever discussed with Tim. Since I didn't get a chance to talk to him, I don't know how much he paid attention. He basically snibbled at our preservation plan, which describes a lot of that. Because that was part of what was in it, was how it got to be like it is. The front of the house, the front room on the end toward the town hall, and probably the room over it were the original structure.
Yeah.
So therefore that was a freestanding structure before any of the rest of it was added to it. And then the back, the lean-to section behind it where the entrance room is, and the whole other end of the house of the salt box part in the front was apparently added about the same time, about 1790. And when one looks at that structure inside and out, you can see how it was appended to the other one. The original structure was independent unto itself. And the other one was added to it, and in some respects, not very well. But it, that it kind of leans on the other one, at least right at the junction of the two. And then you had the part where the kitchen is added onto the back, the kitchen and bathroom. That was added onto the back about 1850 as an entirely separate thing, just leaning against it, against the whole house. When I start hearing about integrating those structures as being essential, I kind of go, huh? Because they've already been standing there all this time as the way they were. And I don't know how you make that all one frame. And I don't see the necessity of it, but you want it so they're not going to drift apart. But we haven't seen much indication of that matter. And then we have the structure that's the annex, the piece that sticks out toward the former Lindsay house. That is well, that's just plain another structure, and that was added to and so forth. And there's an issue about, there's a joint with the house that sometimes you can see light through. And my view is caulk it up and then see how it develops. I just, if it's well supported and, which we spent some money on and got done, I don't see why, as long as it's not apparently continuing to move, if we find that it is continuing to move, then we got to figure out how we handle it. But we actually jacked it up and pushed it in a way that should have pushed it up against the house to a considerable degree when all of that was done, because we raised the end of it
Actually,
away from the house a good foot. It was really a lot that we raised that. And I was really surprised when we have that space showing, but maybe it's just a matter of everything settling, after the changes. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much you want to attach that to the house, as much as I just want to make sure that it's tight.
Write
But
that
anyway.
down. Write that question down. I'll
Yeah,
write it down
yeah,
too.
all those things are,
That's a good question. These are good questions. They really are.
yeah, well, we
can't
didn't get to
answer them. We don't.
ask them before, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, unless anybody has any more specific things to add to the discussion of the supplement and the foundation and the original report.
I still need to, I don't seem to have a copy of the original report, so I need to.
Oh, I
I
can
need
bring
to
you
get-
one
review
this
that.
afternoon.
Okay, if
Yeah,
you can, that would be super.
yeah,
And then I can get into that again to make sure that what I think about it is right.
My
okay.
only question, June, the only thing I'd add is what are our next steps from here? We're starting, maybe the question raising and jotting them down and compiling them would be good. A good step for all of us to take.
Well,
But then,
I-
you know,
yeah,
does that
I
come up?
think,
Maybe that comes up next in our discussion. I don't know.
Well,
yeah, it does
Mm,
actually.
Okay.
But
we
we do-
continue our discussion at the next meeting,
Mhm, mhm.
some of these things.
Well, I would
And
like
so-
to, there are two ways we can get input that I think we need to, I don't think we need to shortchange our understanding, but so that we can ask the right questions or ask enough questions. But I think that we should communicate. I'm willing to communicate with Dan Barton and just ask him to come and talk to us and inform, and if he's willing to do that, give him the information he needs to have the background. For instance, the preservation plan from 2016, the 2 reports that have been produced by Tim, and then maybe the National Register document. I'm not sure if there's anything else beyond that he should have. But I can't make any more progress in my mind to coming to grips with what we need to do without the help of someone like Dan. And we do, I mean, coming to talk to us and being informed with those documents, I mean, I'm sure we have to pay him something, but
Right.
I'd like to get, permission to ask him. And I guess we would need permission from the select board to use some mitigation monies, part of that 12,000 to pay him.
I'm all for that, June. I'm all
If-
for that. I think, I don't know Dan, I've never worked with him, but he comes very highly recommended by Evie for sure. And you've worked with him, June.
And
you
Barry
feel-
has 2 actually
Barry
on the
has.
town hall, yeah.
Yeah.
And I found him very good to work with, and he's thoughtful, and he also is very willing to listen and consider alternatives and stuff. What about Paul McCalkin, the foundation?
Okay, I wrote to Paul McKelkin. I saw him yesterday, and he really wasn't willing to speak to us.
Okay,
He didn't actually say that to me, but in my email to him, I said, don't feel obligated. We're just reaching out to you because you're experienced and knowledgeable. And I said, if you're willing to have a look, I will send you the 2 surveys that Tim produced. Actually, Paul has seen the original one, the first one from December 2020, because he came up to Elaine at the end of our November meeting and expressed his concern about the foundation.
at the
And
town
so,
meeting.
yes, at the town meeting. And she did give him a copy. I don't know if she sent him an electronic copy, but anyway, whatever he had, he gave back to me. He gave me back that December 2020 survey. And the only other thing I said in my email to him was that the supplemental report updated his understanding of what should be done with the foundation. But I guess he just doesn't want to be involved
You know,
with our
I
dilemma
can
right now.
I can see, I mean, I can understand the awkwardness for him. You and I've talked about this, so that, you know, coming in almost, you know, after we've started and after we've had Tim do work and asking him kind of to assess for himself. Yeah, I think it's awkward for him, probably. It would be for me a little bit.
Yeah.
If I was part of the group from the very beginning and putting my ideas out there, that would feel quite different
Yeah.
now.
Well,
maybe
it was
if
a, you know, it was a, I asked him and he's
yeah, I think it was
reluctant.
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I look at him sort of like a big brother. Like if all
yeah,
of a sudden,
Yeah.
yeah,
I wrote that on my book. I said, Big Brother Paul. If all of a sudden we got in some little jam that wasn't going to involve judging somebody else's work or their reports or anything like that, it might be something where he'd say, "Oh yeah, I know where we can get some doors," you know, that sort of thing.
Well, what I would have asked him was to look at the foundation, was to go in the cellar and get his view on whether he thought repointing the foundation from the inside was a valid way to go about it. That's
Well,
simply the one thing
yeah.
I wanted to know. I didn't really want to get him into a potential mess that way. I just
Yeah.
wanted to know whether that was a viable way to solve the problem, as opposed to digging down the outside and putting in poured concrete against the foundation. As
Well,
a
I
way
did,
to seal it up.
ask him if he would have a look at the foundation, but I didn't ask him, I didn't put in the piece about repointing from the inside.
That's a pretty big question too, and that would be a hard one, I would think, for him to answer, just coming
I
in
mean,
out of the clear
yeah.
blue. And it
I
also,
mean, I can
he probably
ask
will
him.
defer to the person who's working on the
Yeah.
project.
I mean,
At town meeting, that's what he got up and said,
Oh, okay.
was that's what he'd done in his house, and he thought that was a viable way
Yeah,
to handle this that would be less expensive.
yeah, yeah.
That's what he said at town meeting, and that was really why what I wanted to do was just to test that statement a little bit more, and because I'm so blown away by the amount of money that
Yeah,
would be spent on this the way that it's been proposed, that if we could do that, we could perhaps divert a little of the money we were going to spend on the foundation to some of the rest of the issues, including the architect's cost for the foundation work.
well, do you want me to approach him again or just
No,
let
I
it
would
go?
say not.
No, I wouldn't. I think he's told
I would
us
say
that-
not. I think
Yeah.
he has seen that he could get embroiled in the middle of something, and he doesn't want to be, and I don't
Yeah.
blame him for that.
Yeah, I think
If
that's
we'd
pretty much
handled
it.
if we'd handle it more simply, that we might have got him to give us a little advice on that, and then we could go on from there to, you know, an architect, and have that as one of the possible proposed solutions.
I did talk to Lee Tabor a couple weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, and I had him read the reports, the 2 reports, and his response really was, if we have any specific questions, he would be happy to get back to us, you know, informally. And the only really specific thing he said when I met with him was he considered that perhaps roll roofing instead of a cement floor would be adequate if we did that, because in Tim's recommendations it's and or roll roofing or cement floor.
Oh, really? In the basement?
In the foundation, in the first survey, December 2020, he says cement floor and or the roll roofing as a surface for the basement.
Interesting.
So I'll make sure I bring a copy so you can have a look at that.
Yeah,
That was the only specific thing that Lee commented on, but he did say that if we have specific questions, he would try to, you know, have an opinion or,
oh, yeah.
you know, so, you know, we could talk to
One
him.
thing, one thing he'd be very good for to help with is if we prepare stuff for, to give to an architect to work with, we might have him review it for us, because that might help us to have a better document to give an architect.
So
That's a good point.
so I'm asking if we can, you know, just send Dan a message. Would he be willing to talk to us? And if he is, then we can provide him with information, and the timing of that, you know, is definitely on his schedule, but what would be too soon for either one of you? Nothing's too soon for me, because I you know, I can't, my understanding is is pretty much at an end, except for perhaps Barry and you know, for us three to actually go to the building and have another look at some of the things that were done in the past, you know, 10 years.
I guess my only thought would be if we wanted to be prepared a little bit with, you know, we're going to want to make good use of any time we spend with him. If we wanted to prepare questions, I mean, we can go off now and think of some things, but so that we would be, and then that would probably mean posting another meeting, and we could have that before he comes, is my point.
Yes.
And
Yep.
we could have that meeting in the Bullard House if we wanted to. If we thought that wouldn't be just a distraction. Sometimes it can be when you're right there, but
Yeah.
so I wouldn't say don't put it on for next week. And we don't have to rush too much anyway, because it's going to be a while before we would be able
Well,
to actually choose an architect.
The benefit of talking to him is that he will see it. He will be able to frame it in a way that we can handle it. I mean, that's.
But we clearly have concerns about how to proceed with the structure of the building. So I'm just thinking if we had a chance to kind of just reflect again on those concerns, rather than, because it's easy to get off track. And if we can each think about what are our biggest questions for him and the biggest concerns, and then maybe pool them and sort them a little bit so that we get the most benefit out of seeing him. And I don't think it's going to take us very long to do that. None of us are working, retired, so
Yeah,
schedule things pretty easily.
We meet again on the 13th of April. That's our regular meeting time in the evening. But what I could do ahead, and we could have our questions formulated and be ready to, you know, to meet with him. But in the meantime, I could ask him if he's even willing to meet with us.
Right.
Is that acceptable?
Yeah.
I don't think we should meet with him at a regular meeting. I think we should have a special meeting to meet with him.
Meeting. Yeah, good
And
point.
the reason is so that we can just concentrate on what we want to talk to him about, and not have him waiting, or us, you know, having multiple other things to talk about in the meeting. I would have a special meeting to talk to him that was just devoted to that matter. And I would suggest that it would be really good if we could have an on-site visit with us in the building prior to our April 13th meeting, so that we can have more of this discussion then in preparation, if he is willing to meet with us.
So that would count as our special meeting then, going to the Bullard House and.
Well,
No,
no.
Questions? No.
We need to go ourselves first, and then we would need, if he's willing, we would need to post a special meeting on site with him.
Yeah.
Oh, on site with him.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. I gotcha. So if we did want to pool some of our questions and come up with things we want to make sure we don't miss, can we do that at the April 13th meeting?
Yes,
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay, so that just goes on.
And maybe do our commission site visit
prior to the
before
13th.
that. That
And
makes
commission
sense.
site visit before the 13th.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
So we could
good, I got
we
it.
could schedule that now. Because
And
that wouldn't be a Zoom. How would they let us do that if it's not Zoom? Well, it's a site visit. It's just different. Okay,
It's a site visit.
yeah,
They come.
And-
Do I have
they
to
come the site if
communicate?
They want to.
yeah. And so do I have to post it if it's a site visit?
That's a question I don't know the answer to, but I would post it as a
Yeah.
site visit.
Because
Okay.
there's a quorum that's meeting to talk about this stuff, and I
Yes.
think it's essential.
I
that-
would post it as a site visit. As such, it doesn't have to have all the open meeting aspects to it necessarily. But I would post it as a site visit that we're going to the house to go through it and talk about it. And that the results of that meeting would be discussed at our regular meeting.
On the 13th,
Yeah.
okay. Would it be possible to schedule that for next week? The week after is tough for me.
I think next week is good.
Yep, I think so. Let me get out
Let's
my.
see the calendar here.
Just going to make sure that's not my sister.
Okay.
So today is,
She's fielding a phone call.
oh, okay. Let's see. Well, it's not April yet. It's gonna be though.
Gonna be another day or so.
Yeah, so next week. Next week is good for me. As good as it's gonna get. The week after I have some responsibilities at St. Luke's and also my sister, so that's a little tough.
So you're talking the 4th through the.
Yeah.
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 4th through the 8th. 4th, I'm tied up, but other than that, I'm good. Anybody have a favorite
yeah.
site day?
I could do it in the mornings. Afternoons are a little harder.
You want to do Tuesday, Wednesday? Wednesday's sort of our day.
Yeah, Wednesday's our day.
Seem to do things. Shall we say Wednesday morning? Site visit?
Is that good, Barry?
Okay.
Okay, so April 6th. And
What time? 10?
I can do 10.
It's okay.
And so you know for a fact that if it's a site visit, we don't have to post it and have it be an open meeting?
Well,
I
Barry
think we do
suggests that we
post it.
post it.
Oh,
That
yeah.
we post it, but I
Post
don't
it
have
as
to
a
go.
site visit.
Yeah, I don't have to go through the rigmarole of getting a webinar number and all of that.
Right, but it has to be an open meeting then? If it's posted, I think it does probably.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we just have to, I mean, that's the one thing that happens is it's hard in a situation like that to tell other people they don't participate. But it wouldn't matter that much one way or the other, probably. We'd just be discussing stuff with whoever's there.
Well, it's not likely anyone will come, but
I
unless we
agree.
want to invite somebody.
Yeah, I think that's fine. And
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we've got attendees 0 here and we've had attendees 0 at all the meetings for quite a while.
Yeah, yeah.
So my view is I just post it as a site visit.
Okay.
And
I can tell Scott about it just in case
yes,
he could get loose and have a look with us.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
that's perfectly fine. I mean, my view is I would treat, under the current situation, I would treat Scott as essentially an associate member of the commission.
So then the 13th is a week after that.
Yeah,
And that's when we would have, well, by then I would know if Dan was willing, but
Yeah.
on the 13th, we would be able to have our questions more fully articulated.
I think so.
And then,
June, could I make a suggestion about that? I know this
Sure.
is going to make me sound like a teacher, and Barry will probably corroborate. Could we write them down so that
Yes.
it's not just sort of forming it out of our heads, but that we've really thought about it and
Sure. And
that
I might have better questions after we have our little visit next week too,
yeah.
that
No,
might help.
I think we all might have better questions after our discussion today too. So,
Yeah. Okay, so hopefully we won't have any other demolition permits, but,
you never know.
We'll just-
okay, so we've got that.
We
and
are anticipating one
Oh,
from 36 Central Street, but we don't know when it's going to come.
oh, that's right. That's right.
But that one is a stickier wicket because it is an old house and at the same time it's got some condition issues and we'll just have to. I have already made the statement. We really would like a chance to get inside and see because that will help us might help us decide some things about it too.
Yeah.
And then the meeting with Dan, if he's willing to do it, would come after the 13th sometime.
Yeah, it would come after Easter or whatever.
Mhm.
Whenever hopefully he'll be willing because he's a known, he's a known person and.
Well, he's an architect who's a practicing architect who has a lot of experience and depth in regard to preservation projects.
Yeah.
And I mean, one of the questions that I would ask him point blank is the concept that we had in the first place of trying to preserve and restore the front part of the house while the back part of the house we just renovate to use. Is that just whether that's a valid approach from his point of view? I mean, that's something that I'm very interested in because we have been told it's not by Tim and the Wickstroms, but I want to hear from somebody like him whether it is. If he thinks it isn't, then maybe I have to recombobulate my ideas.
There's another request here to seek input from the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission.
Yes.
And Trish Settles, who is our who represents.
She's one of the deputy directors of Central Mass. Yeah.
You want to speak to that, Janet?
Yes, Tim has sent her an email because they work together all the time. And we haven't heard back from her. I think he just sent it yesterday to, find out if she'd be willing to get together and, or participate if anybody I mean, I don't know that we need to get together, but this would get us a chance to focus on the grant. And because they often help write grants.
Yeah.
Difficult and that, if you know some of the tricks, I suppose you are more apt to get it. And, I don't know how we would arrange anything or what we would arrange or whether we just talk. I don't really know what it would look like. I don't know whether it would cost money or not. I don't quite know how the organization works to support groups in the Central Mass region, but at least we get to talk with her about ways she might be able to help us. And I also talked to Mary Reddington, because she apparently loves to write grants, and I kind of dogged her a little bit to say, we may have some questions for you. So.
How did she respond?
I have no specific information about how this she might be able to help us how this-
They could advise us considerably
Yeah.
on how to approach a grant that we
Yeah.
write and
Yeah.
what matching fund, what you can do with matching funds and how that should work. And I mean,
Yeah.
a variety of things like that
Yeah.
they could advise us on and help us to get
Yeah.
on
And the nice thing-
point.
Yeah, and the nice thing about Central Mass is they're really eager to work with different groups. You know, this is something they're very committed to and are trying to assist as many people as they can with things, as many communities.
And
So,
some of their services are free based on the fact that we're members and we contribute normally, but others of their services they would have to charge for.
okay, yeah,
And this is again possibly some of the money that we have left in the
yeah,
mitigation funds. And definitely, I mean, the Historical Society's got, I don't know, $12,000 or something in the building fund. That's for the Bullet House. And we've got the 700 that we've got in
Donations.
those are donations for the Bullet House.
mhm,
Excuse me, 600 plus. The last 100 is at the discretion of the commission, but the 600 was collected for the Bullet House. So we've got money there that we could use for something like that,
mhm.
which could be helpful. I mean, getting money from those other places for this kind of help, if the present money we've got from the town is too earmarked to use that way,
Mhm,
you know.
mhm.
So we've got some possibilities for
Yeah,
that kind
that's
of
good, more than
consultation.
I realized. Well, I expect to hear from Trish
Okay.
soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
If they'd be willing to
Help us
deal with
with
that topic.
help us with the whole grant business.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And my sense is that she's going to be willing to do that. So we just haven't quite figured out how to make all that work, but
Okay, good. So,
My
we
number
can-
one question is how can they help us?
yeah.
Okay, so we can at least put our requests out there to speak to these two people.
Yes,
And,
yeah.
Actually, there's a couple more things, but the last thing on the agenda is to deal with our commission vacancies.
I did make some phone calls.
Oh, okay.
Would you like me to report?
Yes, please.
Okay. Bob McTagg, as we all assumed, really feels like he needs to stay with the registrar job, and they're not allowed to be on other committees and commissions if they're a registrar. He said, I think especially right now with things, the politics being as they are, he said, I really want to be there to fill
Do
that,
his part.
fill
Yeah.
that duty. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I left a message with Mary Reddington and I said, Mary, I know you don't like to sit around in committee meetings talking too much. You like to get right in there and get things done. And I said, so we'd be happy if you wanted to be on the commission, but I think what we really might need help with is to help us with just understanding grant writing. Now we have Trish, but it never hurts to have some local person who you can just say, hey, tell me about this, So that's how I left it with Mary.
Good.
And I haven't heard back from her. I just talked to her left a message last night. Rebecca, it was just what you thought, Barry. She's really happy with what she's doing. She has a little one at home and really doesn't want to add another aspect at this point, but was very interested in the work of the commission and
Oh, sure.
and wants to continue, which was your suspicion, Barry, but I thought, hey, what the heck, I'll call and ask her. Maria Rootsmoser, who told me about her?
Me.
Yeah.
June.
Call Maria. This isn't a good time for her. She has something going on that really she should attend to. So this isn't a good time, but it wasn't a, don't ever call me back about this, but I think it would have to be at a different time. She also said she has a loom, and I didn't react to that so much as just the rest of the conversation. She has a tabletop loom. She wondered if I wanted it. And I thought, I wonder if we'd like to have one more thing in the, it might be interesting if it was something that we could actually use or show people
It's-
how to put on the warp threads or something. Somebody might like to play with it. But
Well, I mean, is it an antique? I mean, is it
I
a
doubt
valuable thing?
I doubt it. I think it would be something we'd use more in a workshop where we were just letting people experience some of the old processes,
I
that,
see, a demonstration thing.
yeah, but I don't know how long she'll have it, and I didn't discuss it with her at length. So then there are a few more names here that I don't know if it's, if you want me to read them off or want me to just pursue them and then bring it back to the group when we get together next and tell you what their responses were. Is that a better way of doing it rather than sticking my neck out and reading off people's names right now? I think I might do it that way.
That's
all right.
fine with me.
Just make a contact and then bring
Yeah.
it to our next, because we have several get-togethers coming up.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
back then. And if anybody has any new ideas, don't hold back. Let me know. And James made a really good point when I was trying to look for people that we were experienced with and that we knew were good committee members. And he said, if you don't reach out to new people, it'll always be the same 20 people running the town. So he said, don't be afraid to reach out to new people that we may not know very well, but that we've heard good things about,
Yeah.
I always like to have somebody that brings something to the table in their background that broadens us.
Yeah.
Somebody that's got experience with building preservation, somebody's got experience with antiquities that can help us with the collection, somebody's that's got research skills in this area that can help with some of those things.
Mhm.
That's the kind of stuff that I'm always looking for, is somebody that adds to our experience or adds to our skills.
Well,
Because
the other skill that I wonder about, I like that idea. And the other skill that I wonder about, and especially right now, is skill with business, understands how businesses work, because I think that's where, we're trying to work with getting money for this grant, and some people just love that kind of stuff. I personally, I would dearly love to have somebody walk in and say, let me handle it. But maybe that's risky. Maybe they're trying to turn something that shouldn't be that business-like into a business. But I do think we need to have some business-like mentality as well.
let's say not just business, but experience with the nonprofit, in the nonprofit sector.
Yes. Yes.
Either in government or nonprofit, because it's really different than business.
Yeah, that's a better way of putting it.
But there's a lot of people that have background that way. That's good.
Yeah.
Also, people who have tech skills.
Yes, tech skills would be helpful.
That
Yeah.
Bob McTagg certainly could fill that, but he's taken.
Well,
He's
no,
taken.
the tech skills, and especially with some of the things that we would like to do that aren't related to fixing up the Bullard House.
Yeah.
Tech skills might be really useful.
That
But now that we've said that, I want you guys to be out there thinking about who these
Yeah.
people are.
Oh yeah.
more people.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
There's just a couple of small things under other business. One is the Art and Historical Board meeting on the 12th of April.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's an opportunity for us to promote some small group programming, and maybe I'm going to try to have a couple of ideas more fully formed to present to the group at that time, just so that we don't let our potential to promote what we want to happen with the Bullard House with some small groups create that interest. Yeah.
I like that idea. And I was thinking that, Barry, you have so much background. If you even thought of one topic that you might, even if it's just a small group, might be willing to share or talk about, that we
Well,
could add.
that's really what we're looking for, is small group kinds of things,
Yeah.
because large group things, I mean, we've still got a pandemic
Yeah,
laying there, and it's uncertain right now whether that's gonna have another surge coming up or not. But the idea is small groups to work on things, and the one that I've got in my head right now is the business about researching old houses, and
yeah,
I bring a few books and some tax lists uh, and a computer where you can look up deeds, and we can actually sit there and do some of that kind of work with a small group. And I think that would be something that some people might be interested in. I do it as a daytime thing to start with and see what
Yeah.
happened, and then perhaps do an evening sometime too
yeah,
for people that couldn't come in the daytime. But that's one of the ones I've got in my head to do. And it would be that could be kind of fun for some people.
yeah,
And we'd also see what other interests the people had in terms of things we can research or pull together information on.
Yeah.
The other, I had I guess it was an email from the Friends of the Library, because I must have paid my dues, or I must be a friend. Anyway, they're trying to coordinate with First Parish to have a book sale. First Parish may have a plant sale. So I was wondering if that wouldn't be an opportunity for us to unload some of these things that I've saved and cleaned and repacked for a yard sale. I'm not sure. I'll read that email again to see if there was
Yeah.
a tentative date, but I don't think there was yet.
Can you check in with them and see
Yeah,
if
yeah.
they want to add somebody else?
And that's something we should bring up on the 12th.
That's typically early June
Yep.
For the plant sale. We didn't have one the last 2 years because of the pandemic, but we really are committed to at least try to have a smaller one, at least that much this year, because it's an outdoor thing anyway. And if we can get enough stuff lined up, we'll have a plant sale. As of right now, I don't see any yard sale planned. There's yard sale stuff, but there's no yard sale planned by First Parish, even in the fair in the fall.
So maybe if we wouldn't
I'm
be,
waiting to see whether that may materialize it, but as of right now, that's not planned. But yeah, if there's other things happening like that, it might be a time we can
yeah,
try to have a
because-
yard sale.
yeah, we definitely need to put ourselves where there's traffic.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'll try to follow that up
Yeah.
a bit so that we can talk about it with the Historical Society.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
what was the other? I didn't write down the other things, so I guess it couldn't have been that important.
I mean,
Anyways,
that's really not commission work, commission
No.
business anyway.
but I have a lot of the stuff, so.
Yeah.
And hopefully, Janet, you'd be able to come on the 12th to the society meeting.
Yes, I've got it
That-
right. What
yeah,
time does that start?
7:30.
7:30,
And is it Zoom?
and it's
No,
at-
it's in Memorial Hall.
Memorial Hall.
it's in
the town
person,
hall.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Memorial Hall at, tell me the time again,
7:30.
7:30
7:30.
on the
Okay.
12th. And we sit in kind of a spaced out circle. We're not maybe 6 feet apart, but we kind of sit in a
Yeah.
spaced out circle. And at least some of us, I think most of us have been masked for that lately.
Yeah.
And I think
Well,
that'll stay that way.
the last time we met, I think we had to be masked in a town-owned building.
Yes. And
But
as
this time it would be optional, I guess,
Yeah.
unless they go backwards.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you brought that up because I was worried I might have, be missing these.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's important. And when we had our last board meeting of the society, that's one of the things I did say that I was going to invite you to come to our meeting, because we are talking about program ideas, and
Yeah.
especially smaller workshop type programs at the moment, but anything for program ideas, really.
Yeah. And my focus is really to promote some interest in what happened and the people that lived at the Bullard House.
I think they would really enjoy
Yeah.
that.
And
That house is so cool with all the things it's done and all the different people that live in it, that
Yeah.
I think the more we can play with
Yeah.
that,
yeah,
the better.
and people will like, I mean, if there's enough lead time so people will know about it, I think
Yeah.
that the people that really want to will get there.
And some promotion. We'll have to, that's where we,
Yeah. Yeah.
need it.
Yeah. Promotion.
But that's
Okay. Is there any other business? I think it's noon time, and
I think you've
It
covered
is.
it all.
it's noon. Yeah.
Yeah.
And can we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Okay. Second.
Second.
Okay. Roll call. Barry
Aye.
and Janet
Aye.
and June. Aye. So the meeting is adjourned at 12:03.